Hello, everyone, and welcome to, as Cedric says, the very special office hours. This is honestly, I think, one of the biggest office hours we've ever had, not to understate it. There is so much we have to share with you today, so many exciting new features that you will be able to use right now or just within the next few hours, a couple of days or so. We'll see. But we have so much to share with you, and that is the point. I'm Laura, and this is Stately Office Hours. This is where us, the team at Stately, give you updates on everything that is going on with Stately and with XState. As we always start off office hours, we start by introducing the people who are here today. So, David, who are you?
Hey, I'm the founder of Stately and creator of XState.
And Anders.
Hey, I'm Anders. I'm the CTO at Stately and super excited about today.
And Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin, and I'm doing engineering here at Stately. Also very excited.
And I'm just going to jump over Tyler quickly to Nick.
And I'm Nick, and I do product design and development, and I'm very excited to show all the stuff that we've been working on for a while.
And we have a guest with us today, and that is Tyler. And Tyler, we're going to be chatting with you a little bit later. So first off, shall we jump into the very exciting things that Stately Sky is now live? And I'm going to share my screen for this. And there we go. And I have it on a separate screen, so I should be looking over here. So this is our classic traffic light example that you've probably seen many times before. And now what you can do is you can deploy this as a workflow live. This is what this fabulous new deploy button is for. And what you will do is you will get an API key for your project, and you have the ability to deploy your machine, your workflow, any exciting thing live as a live actor to Sky. Use this URL for your actor. If you want to get started with this and jump straight into it, we have a getting started guide that Anders has done on our docs. That is stately.ai/docs/stately-sky-getting-started. Bit of a mouthful. You can just go to the docs and you'll find it from there. And that will give you everything that you need to get started, including a wonderful video made by Anders that walks you through everything step by step. It's very straightforward, I can promise you, because I've done it myself many times at this point, and it's really easy to jump in. And actually, just to show you, when you do deploy your actor from here, we have a little starter example, and you can try this out for yourself if you clone our repo that's in those docs there. But this is that traffic light in action. And you can actually see that we've got 2 people online right now. So we have live actors in here. This is multiplayer. So if you go to this URL, sky-starter.stately.ai, you'll be able to join in and see the traffic light for yourself. There we go, 4 people online now. And you can see we're working through the machine here. It's got the next events being shown in the bottom at the bottom. I can tell that people are hitting them very quickly because the lights are changing really rapidly. And if traffic lights were changing this rapidly in real life, I think there would be a bit of a serious accident. Anders, is there anything that I've missed talking about Stately Sky?
No, I think this is great. I mean, go to the Getting Started guide, either that or our starter app repository. Those 2 places will help you get started.
Absolutely. And we've also on our blog got a fantastic blog post introducing Stately Sky that's written by Gavin, and I would really recommend that. It's a great introduction and a great thing if you want to share with someone else the benefits of Stately Sky. That's the post for you.
Or maybe one thing to mention, if you're interested in the underlying technology of this, we also have a guest blog at PartyKit's site, where we talk a bit more about how we set up the collaboration with their team to make all this work.
Yeah, and we actually had a previous office hours where we talked to Sunil from PartyKit, and you can find that archived on our LinkedIn events or in our YouTube videos. So, Tyler, the mystery person who is on our screens today. So you really jumped in with Stately Sky when we first released it. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Tyler Morrison. I am an avid XState user. I've been doing it since V4 and just love the technology. It's helped out on a lot of different projects. And my day job's working as a bank tech lead. I work in the web space. But after hours, I'm just a gaming nerd and I like to do this. And I realized that state machines are perfect for modeling a lot of that behavior. Both in like what I'm going to show today is kind of like a card game machine that my wife and I just got. We found a game called Racco. There we go. So it was a recent game that we were playing, and it's just a fun organizing numbers. You store them into a plastic rack and hang out with it. But I was like, that's an easy intro to it because there's not a lot of actors that need to talk to one another. And then eventually, I'd love to scale it up to have player actors that can talk and go all around the place. So it'll be a lot of fun to mess around with.
That would be so cool. So have you got a demo that you want to show us? I can show your screen whenever you're ready.
Let's go on and show
Here
it.
we go.
Yeah, so this is one, I've been having a lot of fun with the colors and modeling on the state machine. But this is basically thinking through the idea of a game session for this Racco game. So what we've got here, I've tried to think through the idea that, as you showed in the traffic light, any number of people can join a room. So we might have to have, if we look over here, this is a parallel state. So you might want to have the difference between somebody who starts out as a spectator, but if their player ID that will be stored in their browser matches the state context, we'll switch them into the player mode. And that way they can actually interact with the events. And then I'm not sure, Anders and I talked about this a little bit. I'm not sure if we need to track the actual session, but this is the idea of, I'm still tinkering with a lot of this, the idea of if you're in a session and these rooms go stale, we might want to clean it up just to be kind to the servers wherever wherever these live. And then the meat and the potatoes, the fun of it is just the game itself. And let's see if we can go to the simulate mode. So yeah, we start off with our initial state of waiting for the players. I love, especially all the things you guys have been doing with the editor, that I can really kind of think out loud. And I'm a visual thinker, so this helps me draft the machines and kind of think through what we're trying to do in each of the finite states. So here you can see in the description that, the Racco game itself, and I'm calling it Stacco because we don't have the really cool fancy plastic, and it sounds like stately. It takes 2 to 4 players. So you could have a room of 15, 16 players, but only 2 to 4 can be active at the time. And you can hang out here. This is kind of your little lobby while you're waiting out. And then what happens is when you go to the room itself, we're going to automatically do just a little UUID kind of setup, stored in local storage. Keep it really simple, but that is your player ID. And putting in local storage means that you can come back and be a repeat visitor. And so if you're there and there's still room at the table, you can join the game by clicking the join game. And then you can see here, as long as there's less than 4 people, and then otherwise that becomes a blocked path. Then if there's between 2 and 4 players, we go to the fun parts where we start the round itself. The game's pretty cool that you have different size of a deck. It's, again, the numbers start from 1 to 40 or 1 to 50 or 1 to 60 based on the numbers you get. So the first thing we do is we reset the deck in the context, and then we reset the discard pile. Both of those are just number arrays. We reset the player hands, again, just a basic number array. It's pretty easy to program out. And then we start building out that deck. So we build out 1 to 60 in the numbers, and we do a simple shuffle function on it. Once the deck is ready, this is just going to be an eventless one. We go to the fun part where we deal the cards. I'm thinking this will probably be moved into one of the cool new actions that the Pure is replacing. Mm-hmm. And then once we do that, this is where it was really fun because I've thought about, I wasn't sure about doing 1 player per finite, but the idea is basically the machine will select who gets to go first based on a random number. And then we just get to go around the horn. So we get to go after everybody makes their decisions. They keep going around and around. And the goal when you're doing this is you get a deck that's out of order. So you would get them all shuffled up, and you're basically pulling cards out of your rack and placing them into a discard and replacing your rack so that you're trying to order them from lowest to highest. And I brought a demo. Let's see if we can get this on camera without it looking too janky.
Give me 1 second. I'll get you up.
Wait, there we go. This is like rack. It's actual physical cards, and you can see from the numbers there, they kind of go from left to right. So it's a fun CSS styling thing. it's a simple, fun. You can just hang out and kind of watch TV or be with friends and do it. So that's kind of the idea. Is once you get your deck organized, then you can come over here and you could say, hey, I've got Stacko instead of Racko, and your round's complete, and everybody tallies up the score. And then you can either start a new round, or once the player has 500 points, game over. So it's been a fun just experiment to model around with, and trying to think through the idea that everybody shares this machine, and how do we work with it.
Fabulous. And how did you find getting into using Sky?
Oh my gosh, it was really easy. As far as like you said, if we in the simulation that deploy, I like the fact that when you deploy, you're lots of times you're thinking through these things in iterations, and so you can deploy and redeploy these machines as your models changes, and those URLs stay live. So I can imagine, once you get to production level, if you have multiple of these things, you can deploy the new one, make sure it's live in a testing environment before you either clean up or deprecate the old machines that are live in the servers. So it's been really easy, and it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that is so cool. And have you had fun playing with it live? Have you got the live app working for you? Are you in the stages of doing that?
It's in the stages. It's pretty janky right now. Here, I'll show you guys on the other screen tab here. So what I'm going to try and do, I talked about just forking the starter app so that this will hopefully be available to the community as a fun part here. I just added another Stacko button here, and you can see right here, right off the bat, you get your player ID assigned to you. This will have some rules about, while you're waiting, how you play Racko or Stacko. And then when you start a new game, it'll have a game in progress. And this room ID is what will change the static session ID in our actor into allowing multiple rooms. And so that goes up here into a query parameter. So eventually, if you've got your own room, you can just share the link to people so they could come and join you when it's on the Starter Sky app. And you could name it really whatever. I just have been doing random strings so that it'll keep it from colliding with other sessions.
This is so cool. I can imagine this is going to be a really fun game. Like, let alone a great example for Stately Sky. It just looks like a fun game to play.
Yeah, it'll
your
be
machine
fun.
is gorgeous. I love how you've made use of all of the color, and you seem to be as careful as me about laying everything out very neat and tidy.
It helps me keep things organized.
Yeah, the visualization makes a huge difference, doesn't it? If you're going to visualize it, and it makes it easy to understand if you can look at it all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a fun demo.
Yeah.
It's been fun to think through. I like I said, I play a lot of tabletop games, and so as this scales up, and as you can start to think about different actors talking to one another, you can imagine things where you might sit together like a D&D type session or things like that, where each player's got their own state machine as their character sheet, and then rolling the dice as an actor. It's I think David did a video a while back talking about actors. Everything is an actor, and that's still stuck with me all these years later. So it's been fun to model that out.
That's great.
It's going to be really cool when you'll be able to visualize multiple actors communicating with each other, and that is something that we'll have to look forward to very soon. Anyone else have any questions that they wanted to ask Tyler while we've got him here? Folks, this is a reminder to those of you who are in the chat. You can ask us questions live if you're watching us on LinkedIn or on YouTube. If you have any comments you want to make, like Cedric saying here about Stately Sky, I've played with it this week. It's very promising and interesting. Or if you have any questions you want to ask us, we can try to answer them here live or direct you to our Discord, where we can give you help if you have any code questions or anything that you want to ask later. Team, anything that you wanted to ask Tyler about his incredible Stacko? I think it's
the state chart. Really, sorry, Laura. I was just gonna say I love how it just takes advantage of all of these features that we've been adding, and it's really feels like a conversation of this is what developers need to get what they need to build, and this is what we're building for them. So it really makes sense to see this all in action. It's great.
Yeah, and it's so easy to understand. Even though I've never seen it before, I feel like I could follow along and grok it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel it makes it possible to just generate documentation for this. But since I love how games are represented like this in a state machine, because usually when your friend tries to describe like a new card game or something, it's like, okay, so you have this and this, and it becomes very, very difficult to follow. But with the state machine, you could actually formalize that and give a precise, sequence of steps.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I like the documentation side of it. That's outside of the games, that's been one of the main things that has kept me using XState on almost all of my projects. Is one, you've got a separation of that finite and the contextual state. So you've got the things that can't exist both at the same time, and the two, you can present this to people who've never worked with the state machine before, and it's the same thing you would whiteboard on a dry erase marker, except for this turns into code, and so you can use it perpetually. So that's been my favorite part about state machines and state charts in general.
Yeah, it's much quicker to add a new state or a note to the state machine here than it is to draw it up on a whiteboard,
Yeah.
especially if you're working remotely.
Yep. And on non-games, the other thing I've seen is like that question you used to have when you're all together on a whiteboard of like, well, what happens if that simulate mode that we were looking through is a great time for it. And on another project, I had a team member who was like, well, what happens if this? And I was like, I missed that point. And we just connected the node there. And it's not this like, take the photo of it on your phone and go back and hope they do it right and have 3 more conversations. It's just done.
Yeah, this is music to all of our ears. I am sure. And I feel like this demo is like nicer than all of the demo machines I've ever made. So I'm going to have to be borrowing some ideas from you, that's for sure.
No worries.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tyler. And please feel free to stick around for the rest of the live stream, because I want to see what you think of some of the other features that we've got to show today.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys have.
I think it's going to blow everyone's minds, to be honest. So with sorry, Kevin, I got rid of you by accident. With such a lead up that I've just given you all, David, do you want to tell us a little bit about what forms Stately Studio 2.0 and Stately AI?
Yeah, so there are so many things, and you're gonna have to remind me as I go through all the things. Yeah, so basically, I say all the things as if we have a lot of new features, and we do, but really this is sort of a transition for Stately, where at the beginning, Stately was a collection of dev tools, mainly for XState, and a lot of our users still believe that Stately is XState's dev tools. However, we do want to expand a lot further than that, just because we've seen teams use Stately as essentially an intelligent software modeling tool, where you could create flowcharts and diagrams that actually come to life, and you could generate documentation and tests and even code in XState, of course. But we want to take that vision a lot further, and that's why I guess the AI part of Stately.ai really, really helps us get to meeting developers where they're at, whether they're using XState or anything else. So we've been experimenting with this for a while, but one of the big things I want to show is that hopefully this works. This is a
Could you zoom a little bit, just a bit of browser zoom, so we can see that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now if you go to import, or not now, this is going to be released soon, but before you could of course import XState code, and now I have an example code over here. This is not XState. This is actually Redux, or is it Redux Toolkit? Nope, it's just plain Redux. So let's say that we want to actually visualize this code. So what's going to happen is that we are actually using a mixture of AI and some other techniques, so LLMs, to actually understand this code and map it to a state machine. And so the reason we want to do this is because we want to make it possible for, in the future, all development teams to visualize their application logic and to basically have the same benefits as you would by visualizing state machines. So understanding what are all the things that can go wrong? Am I missing certain transitions or states or anything like that? It is taking a while to import, and we will get it faster. But yeah, so currently we do support Redux, Redux Toolkit, and Zustand, or Zustand. I'm Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And at its basic level, it is going to generate a single state machine with the transitions for each of the actions inside. And there's lots of opportunities for optimizing that for speed. But there's also this experimental feature that we're still working on called determined finite states, where basically we analyze the logic and we determine what the finite states are, the implicit finite states in that state machine. And so, sorry, this is taking a while, demo fail. But yeah, so this is going to be using a variety of techniques in order for us to do that. And so basically it will convert your potential mess of Booleans into those finite states.
And this feature is going to be available to everyone. It's going to be available to our pro users. They can do as many generations as they like, but you'll be able to try it out for free for 3 generations, won't you?
That's correct. So basically the way we do AI generations is we base it on credits, or sorry, generations. So you get a certain number of generations per month. And for free users, that's 3. For pro users, that's 1,000 generations. I do probably have some prepared in my project. So let me just see if I do. No.
Bottom left there?
Sorry. Oh, here we go. So this is a reducer that I imported. We recently made changes today, so that's why the demo might not be working. But this is just an example of importing a to-do reducer. Just a very simple one. We have add task and remove task. And so come next week, we will have some more impressive demos of that. But long story short, we want to support more than just XState.
And so now moving slightly away from the AI things, but to a button that we can see very visibly in that code panel there, the Generate React app. That's new, isn't it?
Yeah, that is new. And so actually, hopefully OpenAI is fine right now. But let's actually generate a flow. Just to give this a good example. So I love doing the shopping cart checkout flow. And let's see what it creates. Also, coming up with some of our AI updates, the AI generation should now be a lot smarter. We're doing a lot of things to optimize it, such as generating multiple iterations of the underlying state machine representation and using heuristics to determine which state machine actually fits the prompts best. And also just expanding on the prompts, determining, okay, what is the intention behind what they want to build? And it seems like OpenAI just might be pretty slow today.
There's gremlins in the system this afternoon. They knew we were doing a demo.
Here we go. Okay, so cool. We have a shopping cart where we're selecting items. In fact, let's go ahead and simulate that real quick. So we're selecting items and then we review the carts. I'll just show it over here. Then we could continue shopping and then review the carts. And let's actually check out so we can submit shipping, submit payments, etc. So this generates a state machine, of course, and we could take that and click Generate React App. Now, this actually does not use any AI at first, but what it's going to do is generate you a nice starter React app that includes production-ready code that you could include directly into your existing apps, or you could use this as a base for new apps too. And you see we have all of our events over here, so I could add an item. And it actually did add an item over here, and you could, of course, fill that event out with whatever you want. And if I do that, it blows up. So let me just, and so that's only
demo gods are not in our favor today.
No, but that's okay because it is showing you that this is real and not pre-recorded or anything. But yeah, so it does generate you that that React app. You could review the cards, check out, etc. But this isn't really real. So if I click Enhance App, what it's going to do is sort of the same thing that that the generation thing was doing, except it's going to be more UI focused. It's going to understand the state machine and take that into context, and it's actually going to try to generate reasonable UI for each of those states. Now, we're using a mixture of LLMs and also just this deterministic separation of states and sending of events. So basically, this means that you have complete control over the logic. And it's not like other AI code generation where it's a black box and you have to hope that it does the right thing. Instead, it's going to actually, well, yeah. So we had generate checkout, to submit shipping, payment, edit shipping. So we have all of our states over there. It uses Tailwind styles to style it nicely. And you also have a few versions to choose from. This one's ugly, so I'm going to skip through it. Here's one: submit shipping details, place order placed. Your order has been placed successfully. So it makes your prototypes a little bit more real. So that is the generate React app feature. And in the future, we will support StackBlitz, and we could easily support things like Vue and Svelte and Solid and other frameworks too. Just let us know what you want by going to feedback.stately.ai.
Great. Cedric has a question. The IA also has generates the actions that you've got on there. Does it? I think he means AI has also generated the actions.
Mm-hmm. I actually learned it's IA in Europe, or in parts of Europe too. So it just yeah.
I was thinking information architecture.
Yeah. So in theory, yes, it can. So that's something that we still have to add on, and it is actually something that we've been working on, which is the actual code detail implementations. And I think Tyler was talking about that either before the show or at the beginning of the show, where basically he's asking about the actions over here, or well, just imagine that there are actions down here and actually providing implementations for them. That's definitely possible, and we've experimented with that in the past, so we know that this can be done. Where basically you take the context of a state machine and you say, hey, this action or this actor is supposed to do this, and it will actually fill out the implementation details for you. So that's something that we're planning on doing.
Great. We have got a lot of questions going on here. I'm just going to jump back a little bit to talking about Stately Sky. So Dr. Sammy D asks, is the state machine running in the cloud or the browser or both? So I believe this is in reference to when we're live actors. So it is both.
It is both. We're running, so most developers have probably heard about optimistic UI, where you update the UI as soon as a user interacts with the button or something, and then you send off an event to the backend expecting everything to go okay. And if it doesn't, that's the optimistic part. You expect it to go the way the user intended. And if it doesn't, you'll revert the UI once you get an error back. So we're sort of doing the same thing for Stately Sky, but it's not optimistic UI. It's sort of like optimistic app logic. So we're triggering the change in a locally running actor while we're also sending that same change to the Sky, and then Stately Sky takes care of propagating it to all connected clients. So, and if you try to Sky in like multiple tabs or across even multiple networks, you'll see that the propagation is super fast. So yeah, I'm pondering if we even need the optimistic part, but right now we're running it both ways. Yeah.
Great. Jumping back into the generating of the React app, Zilchmaster asks, is there a way to use Beat instead of create React app?
Oh, so yeah, this is actually using, actually, I'll have to double check. I think it's using Beats under the hood. This is using Code Sandbox's excellent tool called Sandpack in order to generate that, which means that we could use other templates as well. But yeah, definitely possible to use Beats. And we're also working on GitHub Sync. So in the future, it becomes possible to just integrate this directly into your code base, because we're not asking the AI to generate every single file. We're only asking it to generate parts of the code that we want. So it's possible to use anywhere.
Fabulous. David, do we want to show a few more features? Because that wasn't it,
sure.
was it?
Let's go. No.
So I think I might want to open a different tab for this, but do you want to show us assets maybe? Because I think that's a really cool one that I
Sure.
personally have been after for a long time.
Oh yes, I'm super excited about assets. And actually, you know what? I'm just gonna use this same one, which I believe has assets enabled. Again, this is an experimental branch. So yeah, let's make some assets. So let's say that we want to actually show things over here. You know, so I'm going to take a quick screenshot and I'm actually going to drag it over there. So let's say I'm making a Lego shopping cart, of course, and I can make this large. And yeah, what I just did was I dragged and dropped an image directly onto the state. Now, this doesn't add it to the description. You could always add images and other markdown content to the description, but instead, this adds it directly to the state as an asset. And so you could view the assets when you click the details panel. You could see that we have an asset over here. You could control the size from here, or you could delete that logic. Yeah.
You can add more assets as well, can't you? And then you can drag the order of the assets that are in that sidebar there to choose which one is displayed in that state.
You can. So if I were to, for example, drag this onto here, it shows that if I zoom in here, it has one more asset. So if I go here and let's say I just want to change the order. There we go. Now I can just change the order over here. By the way, I do intend on buying this. I love my Lego sets. But yeah, and then
right time of year for an alpine lodge.
Exactly.
It's
but yeah,
not just images. It's not just images either. We currently only support images on the canvas, but you could also drag PDFs, like for a requirements document, if you wanted, for example.
Yes, exactly. So I could go ahead and drag. I just dragged these. I have a logo of the Stately AI thing that I just had open. So yeah. And this is going to be important for a lot of reasons. It's not just for showing a screenshot of your app on Canvas, although that is very, very, very useful. And I could, we're starting to use this ourselves to document features in Stately Studio and do it in a visual way. And hopefully next week we could actually show you them and make them in a public project so that you could just visually click through and see the different features. But also in the future, if you want to actually use AI to help assist you in making state machines, detecting logical errors and stuff, assets can provide, if you select to do so, they could provide contextual information to the LLMs so that they better understand your state chart.
That's fantastic. It's so much exciting stuff. And I, for one, am just looking forward to being able to make more fun animal-related state machines with lots of cute illustrations in them. And this will be so easy now.
Mm-hmm.
So you have you're just showing us there in the machine details panel right now another exciting new feature that we have. That's another one that I've been talking about for a long time.
Yes, this is the Get Summary. It's a tiny little feature, but it is very helpful, especially if you're trying to get your team or someone else to understand the state machine, or even use it as alt text, which is very important. So what you could do is click Generate Summary, and it's going to take the machine and it's going to compress it into a format that LLMs can easily understand. And then it's going to generate that summary based on it. So it represents a checkout process for an online shopping website, which is absolutely correct. And then it talks about each of the transitions. And it talks about what the user could do. They can place an order, edit shipping details, edit payment details, or edit the cart. So this is documentation that you would write if you weren't so lazy. I'm lazy, so I don't write documentation like this. But now you could use LLMs to really help you out with that.
And it writes a really nice human readable and understandable plain English description. So it's also really useful if, for example, we were saying earlier, alt text. Often you might want to put an image of your machine somewhere, and that's not necessarily readable by everyone if people can't see the image. And so this is a great way of generating a really detailed description for people who want to understand what's in that image without being able to see it. And Yeah, I've been saying for a long time that it would be great to be able to do this, not even thinking that we would have something as powerful as this. And I've been using it already. In fact, I'm going to tell you where I've been using it a little later on today.
Awesome.
I think there are so many other smaller features that are coming in this update, things that you might have been seeing changing over the last few weeks inside of the Stately editor. There are, yeah, that wonderful resizable panel for one.
Oh, yes.
And there's things have been moved around quite a lot to make the interface a lot more intuitive. The interface is a lot more performant, and it should help you handle a lot more complexity much more quickly than you could do before. Nick, is there anything that you want to say specifically about that? I mean, I'm bearing in mind that you're probably exhausted because you have been working on so many of these features so much recently.
Yeah, nothing in particular so much as we've been working for a couple months now to just our goal is to bring the UI for Stately, kind of put it in a place where it's more streamlined and intuitive to use, while also enabling all the features which we're starting to demo now, and we have more to come. And so there's just a lot of kind of planning and consideration that went into where things go, and how we choose to represent things and give people access to things. And I'll just say this is basically done now. We want to still take a few more steps, like for the scaffolding around the editor, like how you manage your teams and projects. But what we're seeing now should be pretty stable now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been great. I've been using it a lot, and I found that the new locations of where things are is very intuitive. One of the big things you'll now notice, the code panel is on the left, and that will also give you the ability to see what's going on in the other panels on the right simultaneously, which is incredibly helpful.
Right. I want to point out two other features really quick. The first one, let's say you're zoomed out and you want to zoom into a particular area. You could just select and press Shift-2 to zoom to that area, or or you could right click and zoom to selection. So very, very easy to get to those. And there was another, so you could actually make transitions targetless. And so targetless transitions, they avoid some issues with self transitions, and the lines just look a little bit cleaner. So if you have a transition that's only doing an action, like in this case, assigning to the carts, then you don't need to necessarily have a transition. So you could make that a little bit cleaner. So you can make it back to a self transition, targetless, or you could do it in the details panel. So you could go here and select no target to get rid of that target.
Fantastic. Right, we have a lot of questions, so I'll bring us all back like this, and we'll keep your demo handy in case we need to get to it in a second, David. So Jackson asks, Stately team, what have you seen as the most common use cases thus far in terms of apps and workflow? So this is referring back to Stately Sky. Big fan of Tyler's D&D example, but curious if you're starting to see any trends among customers.
I mean, Stately Sky is only out in public beta today, so it's been a very select small group that's been kind enough to test and have the early access. So I wouldn't go so far as seeing any trends yet, but hopefully we will see some trends to emerge over the next few months.
Yeah, we have had people ask about the comparison between Stately and something like AWS Step Functions or other workflow engines. And I'm actually really excited about this because with something like Stately Sky, it enables developers to create state machine and state chart-based workflows, which number one, you could express a lot more complexity and have that organized in your state chart. And number two, because it's built on state machines, you do have the flexibility of easily hosting it in Stately Sky, of course, or just taking that code and hosting it wherever you want. Of course, clicking deploy is going to be the easiest way to integrate it in your app. And one thing I'd like to point out is that when you think workflow engine, you think like, okay, these are some backend workflow tasks. You have step 1, step 2, step 3. You're waiting for data to transform and do some other things. And then eventually you get an output. You wouldn't think about using a workflow engine for doing something like running a multiplayer game. But that's essentially the same thing. Like there's no reason why a workflow engine shouldn't be able to just run other logic, especially real-time logic like games. So yeah, that's why we're excited about Stately Sky, because it does enable you to host any logic in the cloud and use it like we demonstrated today, either for the front end or the back end or both. So yeah, there's a lot of use cases that this enables, and I'm personally really excited about it.
Yeah, one like enterprise, less from the multiplayer fun game side, but one enterprise use case that comes to mind is if you wanted to have a customer service representative looking along with somebody in your app at the same time. There's going to be some privacy concerns there, but that idea of like, instead of them being like, well, do you see this button? You can be logged into the same client in a synchronized state, and you can see the UI change at the same time. Be like, oh, wait, pause, go back there. Let me help you find your email or your shopping cart order. So there's a lot of cool things. The multiplayer is just a term, but there's just a lot of people sharing the same session.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good way of thinking about it. Like, we talk a lot in terms of multiplayer, but sessions is the drier but more accurate term to use when we're talking about this. We have a question regarding the future. Do you folks have any plan to build a platform which we can deploy a UI app to preview, like Vercel, and some non-tech guys can edit/play with logic and see how it works with the current UI immediately? This is quite a fun idea.
Yeah, and I think that's really a combination of many things that we're working on and have recently released, such as the experimental React generation, having Stately Skies for people to collaborate on the logic and see a deployed app and play around with, oh, okay, what happens if I click this or do this? And also, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, GitHub Sync, which I think is going to be really important. And that's a feature that we've talked about before and we're still working on and hope to release this year. But it will allow both dev teams and non-tech people, like you said, to play around with the logic, preview that, even without having to create a UI. You could just generate the UI and deploy the logic with Stately Sky and see it all working. So it becomes a really seamless experience for the entire team. Of course, this isn't limited to just front-end apps. You could do back-end workflows as well. But yes, I think that that's definitely possible.
Yeah, not only possible, but we have a lot planned to take this idea further. But you could do it now. You can get pretty close now, with whether generating a React app as a quick prototype or using Sky to hook it up with your code base, and then non-technical people could adjust it and see updates. But we'll make it better, yeah.
Robert asks, do you think the current AI can auto layout the state chart?
Oh, yeah. So we have some big improvements to auto layouts coming soon. And honestly, that's a different type of AI. That is the AI that works in milliseconds rather than taking a few seconds, or with the reducer example, a few minutes. Yeah, so we do have some improvements coming up. And also, with those improvements, we're going to give you the ability to selectively auto layout parts of the graph so that you don't have to wipe away all of your hard work. So there are some exciting things coming to that in the near future as well. But no, AI is not, at least LLMs are not capable of doing any sort of auto layouts, unfortunately.
Robert also said, digging diagrams out of cat's cradle chaos is stress relieving for some people, and I can certainly identify with that. As much as we want to use auto layout, sometimes it is just quite nice pulling all of those states and transitions apart and making it all work, making it easy for other people to read and understand as well. Cedric asks, where are the pictures stored that you drag onto the state? So we're talking about assets here. Where are we storing the assets?
I'll leave that to Honors.
Well, we're using Supabase storage behind the scenes for it. And I think they themselves are using AWS S3. So in the end, it'll be in an Amazon Web Service bucket somewhere.
But of course, if you are a person who works for an enterprise that might want to have a bit more control over where your assets are stored, you can always contact us and to have a little chat about enterprise plans, because that is something we can sort out with you as well.
Yes.
Cedric says, it's a bit crazy. I have the feeling I will not work anymore with Stately. I mean, you are doing work. It's just that you're letting the more repetitive tasks, you're leaving them to another tool, whereas it allows you to handle on like what you're planning and organizing and doing the really important thinking part.
Yeah, and that's an important point too. When you're working with the Stately Studio, or just Stately Studio, we could drop the you're not, even with like all of these upcoming AI features, you're not just going to say to the AI, do everything for me. There are already like example apps and demos where it's like, give me a prompt and then build the entire thing for me. No, we don't want that. Stately, rather, it wants to be that intermediate step where AI can generate a flow just like this, and then you could take a peek at the logic it's generated and actually tweak it, make it human understandable. And then when you're satisfied with it, you could deploy it and even use AI to help you create prototypes and realistic UI for it. But you will know that the logic that you've created is perfectly in sync with what the AI generates. So yeah, the work is really made more like, well, it puts you at a higher level of abstraction where you don't have to dig into the code or anything like that. You could just, move around boxes and arrows until the logic fits what you had in your mind.
It's also really good for if you tend to get faced with a blank canvas, you're not really sure what you want to add in there. If you quite like talking through your machine before visualizing it, you can talk it through with the prompt. You're giving it an outline of what you want to see there, and then you're letting it generate it for you. And so it is a way of helping you work more efficiently and faster, rather than necessarily taking the work away from you. I don't think the machines will be taking over those jobs quite yet. So we have even more questions. Loads of people saying congratulations on the release. It looks great. And great insight. Thank you, David, on the use cases there. Nick says, just joined, so not sure if this has been answered. Do we have a way to customize the actions and guards from the comfort of our own editor rather than using the studio? Right, come on, folks.
Yeah, so currently, sort of. We, of course, have the VS Code extension, which we are working to bring up to date with the current studio and all of its features, which hopefully we will get done by the end of the year. And that allows you to, of course, use the comfort of your own editor. If that editor is VS Code, in the future, we will consider support for WebStorm, PyCharm, and things like that. But yeah, another thing that we're working on, of course, and almost to completion with, is GitHub Sync. And so with GitHub Sync, it allows developers to work directly on the code, or people can work directly in the Stately Studio, and it will sync back to the code. It will make a pull request on your behalf. So yeah, you could use either code or the studio. And another big thing that maybe we'll save this for another office hours. Farzad has been hard at work at this, but we are bringing the bidirectional editor back inside the studio. So you could edit the code over here, see changes here, or go the other way around. So basically you have a lot of options to choose from.
So you won't necessarily need your code editor quite so quickly anyway. All right, Dr. Sammy D asks, with Sky, is it possible to hide state from browsers? For example, I have a poker card game that I don't want all the users to know or be able to sniff via network observing what cards others have.
Yeah, I would say yes. There's like two ways you can go about it. One way is if you want to keep all the state in a machine, you could put that machine server side and then only communicate which parts you want to the client, but have Stately Sky run on your server. The other way is maybe to try to not put the state you don't want to share inside the machine and have the machine be more event driven and just hold the state on each client that needs to be private. But if you're asking in terms of, is it possible on a client level to only see a subset of the state, it's not directly possible in that way.
Yeah.
I
just wanted to add to that. That brings up another important general point. XState, the library, is a state orchestration library. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a state manager library. With the orchestration, like Anders was talking about, you could definitely have that state live somewhere else and orchestrate how the state changes via actions. And so the state machine might just hold the states where it's like, we're on the flop, or we're on the river, or we're doing small bets, big bets, etc., without revealing the actual state.
Exactly.
Great. So according to this, so would we be able to customize what child actors' individual sessions were subscribed to?
If I understand this correctly, it might require like multi-actor communication. Not sure, but if it's that, then there is an underlying design decision behind Stately Sky, which is that Sky is able to do what the studio can do. So right now the studio can see one machine at a time. The studio will be able to see entire systems. And once the studio can do that, Stately Sky will also be able to handle multi-actor communication.
Fantastic. So next up, so we've got loads of questions today. This is absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate it, everyone. So we have Cedric says, maybe the next step with the editor is to include actors in a better way with the sequence diagram, focus mode, etc. Just segueing right into that.
Yeah, so that's what Nick and I have actually been talking about for a while, where basically the state machine view is not the final view that we want. We want you to be able to treat this like Google Maps and zoom out a level and see how different machines are actually communicating with each other. And there's different ways to manifest this. There's a hierarchical structure of which parent spawns which child. There's also the communication structure of showing which actors are talking to which other actors, which is not strictly a parent-child relationship. And of course, there's the project view as well, and which doesn't necessarily represent a system. A system is a root actor, which spawns actors, which spawns actors, and forms a natural hierarchy. But also, there's the popular sequence diagram view too. And so one of our big projects this year is basically moving all of the features of Stately Viz and more over to Stately Studio. So this is just a warning that eventually things will migrate and it will all be in one place. And so with Stately Studio, you're able to inspect different actors being spawned and actually click through them and see those machines at different states. And so we're bringing that same idea to Stately Studio and basically a system-wide view.
That reminds me of a question that we had earlier that I didn't get to, which is, when are you guys releasing XState version 5? What about inspect? So that ties in with this.
Yeah, so as promised, XState version 5 is being released at the end of the month. We have a couple of more big UIs, which Mateusz is actually working on as we speak right now. We're working on finishing up documentation. And like you said, we're also working on inspect. So we do have the updated inspect API. We just need to make it work with the inspection updates in Stately Studio so that it becomes possible to inspect your XState apps, whether they're on V4 and V5, directly from the studio. So yeah, that's all planned by the end of the month.
And Cedric also asked about a focus mode in that comment, which is interesting in connection to the assets feature that we showed off today. So I'll just say that, and like we are working on that.
We'll be fine.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
It has been. Are there any other features that we have managed to miss out? I think we've covered most of them. Sorry, my dog is bursting into the room at the time, so if you hear any noises, that's who it is.
Looking real quick. There probably are, but we'll let you all discover them.
Yeah, there will be, thank you, Oscar, a full change log that we will have later on, where I've been attempting to capture everything as I sort of spot features and hear features being discussed and see them being developed. So we will be able to have a full list for you to catch up on as well. And of course, in future office hours, we'll be demoing them. And if you follow us on social media, we'll be keeping on sharing little sneak peeks as well. Oh, Martin, it's almost like you write these segues for me. What about the new homepage? So this is great. We have just launched a brand new landing page at stately.ai, thanks to the very hard work of Nick recently. It is gorgeous. And this will now give you a much better explanation of what to expect from Stately right now. It represents what we're doing right now. It has all of the new features up there, and it's a great way of explaining what we're doing in just one page. So, oh, fabulous, thank you. So if you want to share it with your team or share it with your boss, if you want to get yourself that pro account, this is now a much better page for explaining everything that we're up to.
Yeah, so we have up-to-date diagrams over here. And yeah, this should make the value proposition a lot clearer for teams. You use Stately as an intelligent software modeling tool for app logic, whether it's on the front end or back end. But yeah, we worked really hard. Well, Nick especially worked very hard on this design. So it's exciting. Go check it out.
And it will keep getting updated as well. So we have lots of fun ideas for the future of this page too.
Yeah, it gives us a foundation to build from. It brings our story up to date and makes it easier for you to sell Stately to your colleagues.
Which is one of the most common requests we get a lot of the time. People want resources because they're sold. They just want to help sell it to everyone else that they work with. Now we have another question from James asks, what about XState test?
Yeah, so XState test, sorry, my camera sort of disappeared for a minute. I'll just turn it off. XState test. So we do have, oh shoot, I removed someone from the stage. I am just messing things up right now. That's how you know that we're at the tail end of the of the demos and everything. So if you missed the last office hours, we did demo some new testing features directly in Stately Studio, which is basically XState test baked right in. So you could go to, of course, if you go to state.new, and let's just navigate to one of our projects over here. I put it in light mode for whatever reason. But yeah, so you could go here, click tests, and click generate test paths. And it's actually pretty quick if you don't use AI. And it's going to generate all of these test paths for you. Again, it's using XState test under the hood, and it requires only a minimal amount from XState. This doesn't actually even import XState test. It just generates all of the state assertions and event assertion placeholders for you. And then it generates all of the paths, which you could visually see over here. So that you could just copy these directly into your test files. With that said, XState test is updated. If you install XState test at beta, it will work with the latest XState v5.
Fantastic. And Cedric says, I really like the new homepage. Clear and clean.
Awesome.
That is what we like to hear. If anyone else has any questions that they want to ask, you can let us know in the comments if you're on LinkedIn or if you are on YouTube. A couple of things that I wanted to remind you of. You've probably, if you've been at the office hours before, sick of hearing me say this, but I'm going to keep saying it. If you have any requests for features or feedback that you want to give us, you can find us at feedback.stately.ai. And there we have a board of features that the people have requested or suggested, and you can upvote each other's ideas. But one of the important features of this is if there's something that you're interested in, if you upvote it, you will be subscribed to that feature, which means that when we have an update or we have a release for you, you'll be the first to find out that it has gone into the studio. And so we would recommend you getting involved there. And also, if you are one of those people who is trying to sell Stately to the rest of your team and you want to get your whole team on board, or maybe you just want to know how to get started with state machines, you can always request a demo from us at sky.stately.ai/request-demo. And there you can book a demo with our team and you'll get 1, 2, or 3, or maybe even more of the team working with you, talking through how Stately might work for your team as a whole and the kinds of projects that you're working on. And we've had lots of feedback from those that they're really helpful and help people get on board much more quickly. Team, have I missed anything? We're almost running up to an hour.
You did great.
Well,
it's been a jam-packed show.
Yeah,
it really has been. It's been a jam-packed few weeks, I think. And Oscar is groaning in agreement down there. So thank you everyone so much for joining us. We really appreciate when you join us here live. We really appreciate all your questions and your feedback and your comments. If you have anything that you wanted to talk to us about or share with us, you can join us on our Discord channel, which I think I have a URL for here somewhere. There we go. Discord.stately.ai is a short URL that will get you there, especially if you have any questions that you want help with code, you have a machine that you want to share with us or want us to look at. If you share it on our Discord, we'll be able to get back to you quickly. You can follow us on pretty much all of the social platforms. You can find us at Stately or at Stately AI. If you subscribe to us on YouTube, you will be the first to find out when we have upcoming office hours. Unless you're on LinkedIn, and then you will also be the first to find out if you have LinkedIn events there. Great. We will have another office hours very soon. Thank you everyone for joining us, and yeah, keep in touch. Let us know what you think. We will be back very soon. Goodbye.
See you all.